Hey guys, Dylan from Noble Records coming at you with another video. Today I'm going to tackle one of the questions I get all the time. There's a handful of questions that I get from most people. One of them, probably the most common one, is people send me pictures of their turntable and they say, do I need to upgrade my turntable? And so we're going to kind of go through that, whether you need to upgrade your turntable or not. This is the answer that I would give everyone if I could. And so we're going to just go over some, important points as you're buying a turntable, or, important things to consider if you've already got a turntable and it doesn't have these things. And we're going to go through some turntable makes and models that you might be interested in. Before we get started, I just want to let you guys know I have not been paid to endorse any of these products or any of these companies. I'm giving you my honest advice based on what I have seen in the past. I'm going to take you through a bunch of different levels of turntables and things like that. And then also, like, the burning question is the title of this video: should you upgrade your turntable? That is based on how far you want to go with this thing. Basically, I always tell people, if you're happy with the sound, stay with it. If don't fix it if it ain't broke. If you're happy with the turntable you got, don't try to keep up with the Joneses or whatever and get you bigger, better turntable. If you don't need it, that's fine. But if you're not happy with your sound quality and it's subpar and you want something that's got a little bit more kick to it, then upgrading your turntable might be a good, easy, quick fix to that. I also want to say we're going to be talking about suitcase turntables in this video. So those are the really cheap ones that you find at Walmart, Target, Amazon. They're the all-in-one units. I want to just totally preface this with saying, if that's where you're at and that's what you've got, love it to death. And if you can't upgrade right now, that's fine. A lot of people will bash them and say, but we've all been to that place in life where we're just starting out with something. If that's the turntable that you've got and you like it, stick with it until you can upgrade it. It's something that you do need to upgrade down the road if you can. Before we get started, if you guys don't mind, hit that subscribe button. That would help me out a ton. I love making videos for you guys, and it always helps to keep you guys updated to hit the subscribe button. Also, like and comment. That helps get the YouTube algorithm to throw my video out a little bit more and helps me continue making these things. Follow us on Instagram at Noble Records, where I have a shop in Matthews, North Carolina, where we're always posting cool things about records and even turntables sometimes. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So the important things that you need to consider when you're either looking at the turntable that you have or a turntable that you want to buy is, number one, is it's a good quality cartridge. But with a good quality cartridge, most of these all-in-one units, they come with actually a plastic cartridge, is what I've heard. Some of them might not. Some of them might have a metal one, but the cartridges on there are not good quality. You're not going to get good sound out of them, and so that is something definitely to consider. Number two is a counterweight. Now, this picture I'll show you, this is what a counterweight is. It's basically a weight that counters the weight of the tone arm bearing down on your record. So basically how records work, I'm sure you know, but the needle that goes into the groove of the record, as it is in that groove, the vibration from the grooves hitting the sides of the needle is what creates the sound, basically. If it bears down too hard, it does put a lot of unnecessary wear on the grooves, and so a counterweight is really good to balance that tone arm to where it's just sitting in there nice and easy. It's not creating too much friction, it's not bearing down too hard of it, and it's not hurting your records, because over time, one without a counterweight will a lot of times hurt your records because there's too much weight on the tone arm bearing down on that groove. So a counterweight is extremely important, one of the most important things when you're looking at a turntable. And then last is a 12-inch platter. I see a lot on these suitcase turntables that they'll have like a 7-inch platter, which is about that big, and it's not this full. A lot of them aren't the full 12-inch platters, and so you have record hanging off the edge of the platter will actually wobble, And a record that's not even warped will actually wobble sometimes because it doesn't have the bass that it needs. And a lot of times records will skip on those that shouldn't be skipping. So that's something to consider. All that to consider. So those are three of the main things. Not the only things, but the main things as you're starting out and you're wanting to buy a good quality turntable. I would venture to say if you're watching this video, you probably are maybe working on some sort of budget. I mean, sky's the limit with turntables. You can spend $100,000 on a turntable if you want to, because they go into the stratosphere, trust me. A couple other small points is, when you have a turntable, you need what they call a preamp. So the signal that you're getting through your turntable needs to be amplified to be able to hear it. So basically, if you just plug the turntable into a regular old set of speakers, if it doesn't have a preamp, you're not going to be able to hear anything. So, or you'll be able to hear it, but it's so quiet, it sounds, you can't really hear it. So you're going to need a preamp to amplify the sound. Now, a lot of turntables, now the good news is a lot of them come with preamps already built in, which is not something they really did back in the day. So that's kind of nice that they do that now. So that's just something to look out for. Second thing you're going to need is some speakers with volume control or a receiver. So a receiver is the unit that you run it into, and you have a knob for the volume. You know, if you run your turntable into speakers and they don't have volume control, you're not going to have much to work with there, because the turntable doesn't have volume control on it itself. So a lot of times what I would recommend if it's a beginner who's just kind of starting out with the system is to get what we call studio monitors. So they're speakers with a little knob on it that controls the volume. So that's a good way to go for those. Last but not least, you get what you pay for. You know, if you're seeing a really, really cheap deal on Walmart.com or whatever for a turntable, or on Amazon, you definitely want to read the reviews on those, and maybe not the reviews on the website, because sometimes with Amazon some of the reviews aren't totally honest, and so you need to go seek them on, you know, look up reviews, just Google reviews on this or reviews on that, and kind of see some reviews from people. You know, look at internet forums. Do your due diligence when you're buying a turntable, because it's a huge investment on listening to these records, because a lot of times people will spend so much money on records and then they'll buy a $40 turntable and call it a day, you know. And the truth is, to really get the full experience of those records, you need a decent turntable at least. So let's get going with some recommendations, I guess you would say. Now, a lot of people ask me, should I go vintage or should I buy new? It depends on what you want. You know, if you want the vintage look, that is a long and winding road. I will let you go on that road on your own, because vintage is a pain. So most of the time, you know, you got to think some of these turntables are built in the 70s or the 80s. So the parts on these things are like 40 or 50 years old. And so at any point, something could snap or break or burn or whatever, and you're screwed, you know. So it really does help to buy something new, and it doesn't compromise the sound as long as it's a good quality product. So one of the things that is easiest to get, most popular, and I recommend all the time, is the Audio-Technica. They have a LP60 all the way up to LP120. They have some other models in between. Those are great turntables. Now, I will say with the LP60, it does not have the counterweight on the tone arm, so there's that. But they still, if you get a decent cartridge, they still aren't quite, they're not too bad. So the LP60 is one, if you're wanting to get a really good, affordable setup, if you got an LP60 with some studio monitors, you'd be all set. If you want something a little bit nicer, I honestly, if it were me, and I was starting over and I had a limited budget to work with, I would buy the LP120. That is a really, really nice, for the money, I think, a great turntable. And if you're not too particular, no need to ever upgrade. You know, it's a great turntable. It's a model after the Technics 1200 series, you know, turntables that are, you know, some of the most durable and reliable turntables of all time. So I actually have a Technics 1200 in the shop that I use, and I play every day. Love it. So it's modeled after that. They're great turntables. They're tanks. They don't give much problems. I would recommend the LP120 with a set of studio monitors or whatever. And as you move on and with your journey with turntables and gear and records, you know, you could invest into a more higher quality, receiver with a preamp in it, and you can invest in some bigger, better speakers. Just starting out, the LP 120 I think could hang with you that whole journey, and you might not have to upgrade it for a while. You could upgrade everything else first. So the LP 60 is something that you want to might want to upgrade in the future. I've heard good things about Fluence turntables. I have a lot of customers in the shop that tell me about theirs, and I've heard nothing but good things. And so they start off at around $200, go up to around $500 depending on what you want, but I've heard a lot of really good things about the Fluence line. From what I've heard, it's good quality product in that price range. Next would be U-Turn Orbit. U-Turn's a good company. They make some solid turntables. They sound good, and they start off around $200. Great turntable for the money if you're around the $200 price range. A couple other ones is there's a company called Rega. They have a broad range of prices on their stuff, but all really good quality. That's if you want to go a little bit like another step higher. Another one is Project Audio, has some great turntables, and a lot of those are kind of $300 and up, but that's if you want to upgrade at a little bit of a higher step. But Project is a really good line to look at. They have a lot of really cool turntables, a lot of good high quality stuff. If you're wanting to go vintage, you can. One of the most common things with a vintage turntable that you have problems with, that you run into, is a belt. Your belt situation. If something's been stored for that many years, the belt could dry out and break, or the belt could melt. Actually, if it gets like a little bit too warm, the belt will melt. So but replacing a belt is easy peasy. You can do it. Anybody can do it. It's the easiest thing in the world. You literally just take the platter off, put the belt on, stretch it over. You got it. It's easy. There's YouTube videos on it. So if that's the only problem, that's easy. But there can be a lot of issues with it. So in this video, I'm not going to go with vintage stuff, but if you're handy, you might be able to handle some vintage stuff and repair some stuff and kind of, go with the flow. When I was getting started into vinyl, again, as a young adult, they might have had all these newer turntables, but I didn't know about them, and they weren't affordable to me at the time. So I was going around hunting vintage gear, and I got my hands on a Technics SL D2 turntable, and it has been the best turntable, and I actually still have it. It's at the listening station at the shop if you're ever there. But I've had the thing, a pipe busted over it one time, and it got completely, I held it up sideways and the water just poured out of it, and I dried it out, and all I did was dried it out and let it sit for a couple weeks, plugged it in, it worked fine. It's very durable turntable. So the Technics direct drive turntables are always, most of the time, usually pretty durable, and you can get them going pretty easily. So that will be SLD1, 2, 3, and the Technics 1200 series. So the 1200 MK2s are great turntables. If you can ever find one of those for an affordable price, they're magnificent. So those I would endorse and say go for it. So those are great turntables. But all this to say, if you're a vintage kind of guy or girl, go for it, but you got to really be careful with that stuff. But the newer stuff's kind of a little bit easier, and then you don't have nearly as many issues or whatever. So I hope this helps you guys out if you're kind of venturing into the turntable world in this season of your life. Thank y'all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Instagram. Stay tuned. We're always posting videos with record recommendations and all types of fun inquiries about records. So thanks so much for giving us this 15 minutes of your life. We'll see you guys next time.